How are we doing, Michael? What's coming up? Do we even want to be here, or is this the time to get on a boat?
We changed in 2020 and 21. We were transformed. We all went through a crash course curriculum in humanity. That curriculum set us up for how we're going to meet the new world. Now that the change and transformation is done, who do I want to be in relationship to a world that's going to need me to know who I am and help serve in even greater depth and intensity in the years to come? And so 2022 is a year of finding your flow.
Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted to kiss the last 2 years goodbye and welcome in a better, I know we're in trouble already, year ahead, then we have the 2022 Astrology Show for you. Today I'll be talking with Dr. Michael Lennox, creator of the Daily Astro Alert, about what we can expect, feel, and plan for in the new year ahead. So welcome back to the show, Michael. Are you ready to shine? I'm scared by the laugh already.
I'm ready. Well, I'm ready to shine, but I'm also ready to bust your balloon about, how. Listen, we are leaving behind 2 years of utter change and transformation like we've never seen before, and there's an encapsulation of those 2 years, and next year is very different.
So
very different.
This is, I hope, good. So I'm gonna.
Well, let me just finish one thought.
Okay, you go.
Down the line a year or two, I can't speak to about being less intense than last 2 years. In other words, there's some coming up in the form of planets changing signs. But what we're moving into for 2022 is a very, very different year. And it is a little bit of a coasting, floating in the aftermath kind of thing. So it's a different. And we'll talk all about it today. That's
Good.
why we're here.
and we're going to go to the stuff we get the shovel in a few years. And we've talked about it on every show so far. Each year we come together, we talk about, 1776 and what that means, things coming back around. So we get to discuss that again. I am going to discuss something briefly that I was convinced I would fall apart during it. But I'm feeling a little braver at the moment. This is a healing show for me, and I know everybody's followed my journey. 2021 has been actually 2020 to 2021 has been an exceptionally challenging time for us. Chased out of our house for the fires, challenges here, challenges there. 6 weeks ago, I'm not sure if you're familiar, I got hit by a car while on my bicycle. So double broken pelvis, some other broken things, this wrist, there's a serpent wound there. It's been fully reconstructed.
I'm very squeamish empathically, so wow.
And then we lost a baby yesterday. And I'm hanging in there.
Michael.
But let me put it a different way. Let's go with different language.
Ooh.
We managed, we believe, to save a baby yesterday because we had twins, and we find out more on Monday. And I have to share from the heart, Michael, so I'm sorry to drop a bomb on you. I know this is a healing experience for both of us.
Sweetheart, this is what I do. Bring it on. I'm here for you in this pain and this transparency, because we share transparently, and that's how part of our medicines. Part of your medicine, Michael, is sharing this kind of thing.
It is. That's I asked myself, do I belong going on the air? And some people will probably think I'm nuts for going on the air. And I said, this is what heals me. This is what serves and soothes my soul, is to help others through this.
That's right. And I'm honored that you felt safe enough with me, to bring that with me. That means a lot to me, Michael. I mean, really, on a personal level, that means a lot to me. Yeah, and I'll just share this. This is personal, but I'm going to say it out loud in front of your audience, is that when we were in our preparation for you turning on the camera, and we went into our breath and our quietness and sort of dropping down into the center in that prayerful way to prepare and start, I just had this profound little moment of you and me, and your name is Michael, and my name is Michael, and that we have this agreement in friendship and collegiality to come together and help and serve. And so that when it then turned into something even richer and deeper, with you bringing something forward that's so personal, I'm touched, and I know your audience is touched, and so
Thank you.
I'm glad you came on today.
And I am too. And I looked at the calendar and what was coming, and I said, it's Michael Lennox. I have to. It's perfect. Because you wouldn't let me. I don't stay down. I am a real guy, meaning I'm going to lean into this. I'm going to cry into this a lot
Yeah.
when the time is right. Right now, I actually have to caretaker something up, step up to get us through this time period. There is no get through, which is interesting because we're going to go to 2020 and 2021. There is no such thing as get through, but
No,
there
we
is.
get, and there's a through, but there's not like an arrival of, oh,
Bingo.
I'm through, and now we're done. No, yeah,
Exactly.
that's not a thing.
But I get to hold the fort for everybody here to get through whatever challenges there may be. Then I can smolder.
You know what's crazy about this conversation is you're literally modeling for me what 20 and 21 were,
Yeah.
which included radical change and transformation. And we're not done with 20, that process. We're still sort of in that crazy change and transformational energetic process that is also now including this experience for you between your car accident and your fertility challenges. This is part of the change and transformation promised in 20 and 21. And then the demand of next year is to take what we learned, to take how we grew, and start finding the flow of what our purpose is in this new world where not only has the world transformed, but so have we.
And it sounds important. And people, if you want, I'm going to do a show on Monday. I'll share everything, so it'll be out as a YouTube live. You can find it. So I won't go into great detail. Totally not necessary for the show, but you can find all of it there. But for our purposes, and I definitely want to understand specifically the energies of today and Uranus and Pluto squaring. But before that, it sounds like we listen to this show, we embody it, we make some big I don't know if we're going to call them shifts or changes, but we anchor in now and we get ourselves in a new position so that when the challenge, this is like halftime. Let's call it that.
I like it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because what's happening at halftime? We're distracted from the thing that's going on. So we're not really in the main gameplay.
Yeah.
The part of us in that example, the players are the aspects of our consciousness that are busy, active, like making life happen and the game of life playing. We're in rest mode. We're in the locker room. We're reevaluating what did the first half of the game look like? And knowing that there's a big second half of the game coming, 21 certainly, and a little bit, not 21, I'm sorry, 22 and a little bit of 23 is that halftime, that reevaluation, that putting, all the ducks in a row and starting the journey that is required of us now that we have been in all of this change and transformation. We are changed.
Yeah. So going to today specifically, and then we'll look at some key markers coming up ahead, what's easier this year, what to watch for, and then we're going to dive into what in the world is coming to the world or for the world. But Uranus and Pluto squaring today and the day after what just took place in our lives, I think is no coincidence at all.
Yeah, no. So we're breaking the fourth wall here, right, Michael? Is that
Yes.
permission that we're
Absolutely.
recording this we are recording this on December 23rd, and it's Saturn and Uranus that are squaring, not Pluto.
Thank you.
It's the
teacher.
Yeah. The teacher and the awakener have been vying for our attention all year long. So Saturn has been demanding that we face life lessons. Uranus has been demanding that we wake up to a higher level of consciousness. So the two of them got together before we got into this year and said, all right, I want people to be smarter and wiser, says Saturn. And Uranus says, yeah, I want to wake up more. And they're like, how can we do this best? Well, let's just fight for it. Let's just give conflict after obstacle, after stepping stone, after challenge. And that started in February. It had a peak in June. And the last wrap up of that was today, December 23rd. Now, this is a slow moving transit that has impact over the entire year. So it's not really a December 23rd kind of experience, except that it does peak today. So there is a legitimate sense of peak. It was like February 17th, June 15th or so, and today. Yeah. And you and I are sitting down doing what our life purpose dharma is, teaching and sharing. You have a personal journey that's part of that. I'm, the guy who says your personal journeys of learning and waking up are going to be huge in 2021. So be prepared. Yeah. And I would say, and did say, February, June, and December are key with that. And then there's nothing better than a story to help illustrate a point. And here it is. Your life story is in growing in age and wisdom, waking up to higher levels through conflict. As that peaked in December, you received a boatload of square-like occurrences, and you sit here and say, I know who I am, I know how I serve, and I show up and I do it, even when I'm in pain.
And I still, at the same time, and Jessica, have had many a conversation at this. I asked the universe, all right, can we have it? We know at some point in the evolution of humanity or whatever humanity becomes, we won't need it to come this way. Can we have that now? Can we have the easier way now?
Yeah. In some ways, the absence of major planetary transits that made 2020 and 2021 so disruptive and tumultuous, that's the hallmark of the big difference, which we'll nitpick into a little bit more clarity later, that there are no big major planetary transits next year. And so in some ways, that request is already granted in some ways. Now, the wind-up toy got wound up in 2020 and 21. This is important that I might say to your listening audience, there are no major planetary transits next year, and someone might interpret that to say, well, then nothing bad is going to happen. It's like, yeah, but inertia and consciousness and events that happen here have an outplay 18 months later. Like there's all sorts of ways that we're going into a quieter landscape, but we are bringing ourselves with us.
When I mountain bike, or we'll go to running. We'll use a simpler example. Running. I'm running on a good trail run. I'm at a good clip. And I see a twig ahead, just a twig. And I move myself just a little bit off. And I don't even quite stub anything. Just a fractional misstep off. It's 10 steps later that I'm going to fall.
Right. That's a brilliant analogy. And yes, so 2020 and 2021 are the maneuver around the twig. And so when I talk about next year and the ease that might be present, I just want your listening audience not to interpret that as, I'm not going to be bumping or tripping or having difficulties. You might.
Well, there's energy set in motion. So it really behooves me. I'm not a gloom and doom guy. This is a day after my most critical, I could almost go to tears. Well, I could easily go to tears. Yeah. Critical life event. But I'm not a gloom and doom guy, and I'm certainly a big picture guy. And if I was to look big picture, it's not about building a bomb shelter bunker out there over this time, but it is about building a bomb shelter bunker in here, in the heart during this time. Not a shelter of a wall, but of opening up and transforming who and what you are to be able to handle the swirling energies coming.
Yeah. And there you have it.
So, all right. Planets are quiet from what you're saying. But there's a lot of interacting with the nodes. What does that mean, and what does that mean for... I'm raising my arms out because nothing of this is for us anymore. Yeah. The me is the we.
Got it. So, first of all, let's talk about what a transit is.
Thank you.
A transit is a wave of energy that we ride because from our perspective here on Earth, a planet and another planet are making an angular connection that we understand as significant in geometry. So, for example, if we talk about Saturn and Uranus squaring each other,
Thank you.
what that means is if I'm on Earth and I look up at where Saturn is, it's going to be there. And then if I look up at where Uranus is, it's going to be exactly 90 degrees away from my perspective. Saturn is there, Uranus is there, and that means they're generating a 90-degree angle of energy that we are feeling as a wave. So we need transits between planets to create events or generate the energy that we meet things with. Just a couple of little examples that I use in sessions to sometimes illustrate this. I might see in a reading a transiting planet hitting someone's chart, right? So moving energy, making geometry with the natal chart, where it's like friction in the mind. And I might go on and on about, oh my God, your mind is filled with so much friction. And then when we get to the talking part, they say, oh, I just started grad school. And I'm like, oh, friction and grad school, they match each other, right? So change and transformation in 2020 was because the angles were conjunctions, planets being together, Saturn and Pluto, two powerhouses. That's the most powerful energy of moving planets is when they're at the same place. Okay, so hopefully people are getting a little bit of a sense of, okay, if there's an energy that the planet shapes are making that we feel and react or respond to, the description of those energies would very aptly reflect what the energy sensation of the year is going to be. So when I said in 2019, 2020 was going to be the most change and transformation anyone had ever lived through, that happened because the planetary story told us that. And then
to butt in for a second, just for a visual, it's like broken glass. Broken glass has lots of sharp angles.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, there's a beautiful map because if the broken glass shard is going this way, the person who steps on it from this direction gets cut. The person who steps on it from this direction doesn't. And that's the difference between a general transit that's impacting everybody, but not everyone experiences it the same. I'm having my Saturn-Uranus square on the 23rd of December, but I didn't just get hit by a truck or lose a baby, right? The shard went in your direction. If I were to look at any given calendar year over the last 10 or 12 years and just set my program up to establish like what social and outer planetary transits might hit in any given year, you would never see a year that had none. You might see a year where there were only one or two. You might see a year where there'd be one that started like the year before and ends halfway through, you know what I mean? Like, but you would never see a year, a 12-month period where Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are not making interactive connections at all. I have never seen this in 25 years of being an astrologer. So now that might make it sound like it's so rare and amazing, but we're not making stupid memes on the internet to get people to click, right? So I don't want to oversell that idea. It just means for 12 months, and we see life as a 12-month thing. We are oriented towards the Julian calendar in the Western world, so that's why we look at and investigate a year's worth of energy. It just so happens that after 2 years of bam, 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 transit, we're like barely getting through the changes in the transformation that those transits reflected. It's like, as of today, December 23rd, they go into the rearview mirror and we move into a period of time where it's not so much about change and transformation at the personal level. It's about now that I feel like I'm in a new shape. I'm newer in how I communicate. I've grown in great ways in self-investigation over these 2 tumultuous years. And now it's really about finding my flow. Where do I fit? The world is sort of moving in this river, and I've got to find my sense of flow. That's shorthand for nodal transits, which in a bit we'll talk about, and I'll explain what that means. But I think the salient piece of information that I'm perceiving about this is that our opportunity to change who we are in the inside, while the outside world was changing so dramatically, kind of ended today. So it's like we all went through a crash course curriculum in humanity. It started on January 12th, 2020. Whew. It was, that's my turn to cry. It was a 2-year curriculum of facing ourselves in the mirror like crazy. Not everybody got through this well. We're talking to a bubble of people who are committed to change and transformation and self-investigation and rising up around the suffering. But let's take a little moment for the millions of people that were destroyed in their happiness and their livelihoods during this time. But to honor the bubble that we are in, which is the light workers who are lifting ourselves up. It's like that curriculum set us up for how we're going to meet the new world that's a-coming. So people are often asking me, when's this going to end? Meaning the disruptions, the difficulty. It's like, end?
Oh, no.
Not only is it not going to end, it's like you're not recognizing this is the beginning. This is not the end. All the breakdowns of the last 2 years aren't something that can end. They are indications that a new and mighty experience is beginning. I think if you thought the last 2 years were hard, it's like just wait till the next decade unfolds. We got a new world to build.
What you're describing to me is the tremors before the earthquake or before the volcano erupts. It comes, and you might get some mighty tremors, and then they go away, and you think it's all done, and then you get more, and then they come and go, and you think it's all done.
So I'll say that then, using your analogies today are great, Michael. Using that analogy, we are going into a year of no tremors, but watch out for complacency. We got tremors a-coming down the line, especially when major planets change signs, which is happening in 24 and 25. And so it's important not to be complacent, but to take our lives and our journeys. The nodes are transits that reflect the journey that the collective is on. And so each of us as individual participants in the collective, it behooves us all as we move through 2022, not to be like, oh, thank God that's over, but okay, now that the change and transformation is done, who do I want to be in relationship to a world that's going to need me to know who I am and help serve in even greater depth and intensity in the years to come? And so 2022 is, again, I'm going to say it's a year of finding your flow. Where is your life sort of drawing you to follow?
It sounds like, thank you, Michael. It sounds like 2020, 2021, we went into either a cocoon or a cave. I'm going to call it a cave for this one. Sure. And we did what we could to get through it in the cave.
That's right.
Now we come out of the cave. The dust is settled, but we can't go back to where we were. But we also recognize that if we're going to need to go back into a cave, it's going to have to be a bigger cave with all of us together for whatever is coming next. Now I need to look at my neighbors and say, how can I help them?
I love it. That clip. That's it. What you just said. That's beautiful. That is beautiful.
Why is focusing on the collective rather than the individual so important now and coming up?
Okay. I don't want to spend too long on this, but let's do a tiny little teaching on what the nodes of the moon are.
Thank you.
This won't be the first time we've done this on your show, because the nodes of the moon are vectors of energy that, because of them, we have eclipses. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the moon orbits the Earth in a circle of intense energy known as the moon's orbit. The Earth orbits the sun in a much larger circle of intense energy known as an orbit, but the two orbital paths cross each other. They relate. So the point of relationship, the point at which the orbit of the moon crosses the path of the orbit of the Earth is actually a fixed point. It's actually fixed. It moves, but very slowly. When I say moves relative from the Earth looking up at it. So if I were an astrophysicist or something like that, I might be able to say, okay, here you go. We're in the, Hubble telescope, or not the Hubble, what's the Lowell Observatory was here in Los Angeles, and I'm looking up the astronomer would be able to point to that exact place where the two orbits cross from our relative perspective of the the unmoving Earth. And when the sun and that point are in alignment, the shadow breaks the beam and we have an eclipse. And then when the sun aligns with that back thrusting nodal energy, we have another eclipse, right? So every 6 months, the angle of the Earth and the sun and the moon line up with this nodal energy and we have eclipses. If you think of eclipses as profoundly collective, because it's an event that the entire world feels. Now, I get it. We live in a global area where, global age where it's like, well, I can't see the eclipse. It's over in Africa this time. It's like, expand your sense of global. Yeah. And it's not just seeing the shadow, but that in a general sense, that shadow is like a collective experience of the light being turned off and turned on again. Just like turning your computer off and on again. That's the power of eclipses. So those nodal energies exist always. They move from the Earth's perspective at about 18 months to get through a sign. And when you take your first breath, those nodes of the moon show up in your natal chart, and they represent your past and your future, your karma and your dharma, your entry into this life and the purpose of this life. So if you get sort of loosey-goosey with me as I'm explaining all this and you think, oh, I hear what he's saying, eclipses impact everybody at the same time. Oh, I get it, that as an individual, I have a karma and a dharma as an individual, but that karma and dharma can't play out in a vacuum. I clean up my karma by interacting with others. I know my dharma by interacting with others. I know who I am based on how I relate to the whole world at large moving in a certain direction, and I know how I fit in with that. Of course, when I was younger, I didn't always know how I fit in with that, and that was a struggle, but it's still a nodal idea that I'm trying to find my dharma as it fits with a world that's moving fast, and I want to find my place in that, dive in and go. So these are all descriptions of the nodes that are designed by me to have your audience understand that when the nodes are transited planetarily, like up there in the sky, the collective is being impacted. Not last year, like 2020, but back in 2021, when the pandemic was up and the political landscape in the United States was so rich.
I was going to go with robust. I like rich even better.
Robust is another good word. Intense, insane. One of the things that was interesting was that the nodal transits that happened in 2020 very directly reflected things that were happening with the political divide in the United States or movement with the virus or the pandemic or the vaccines. So nodal transits can be understood as directly reflecting something that the collective is doing or expressing that us as individuals are going to have feelings about or responses to. So next year has a lot of that energy of the zeitgeist moving or the collective moving, and we will have to respond energetically to less to big events and more to the sense of where life is going.
Not a time to unplug from what's going on with everybody else.
No, in fact, I would say I love that cave image, Michael, because it's like if the movie is, you know, The Day After Tomorrow, which is the movie from my era about the end of the world. It was this movie in the 70s about a nuclear holocaust that traumatized the world. Like,
I
and
can still see the cars. I think if I remember this movie right, the cars are all on the highway and the batteries shut off.
so this moment is like that. That the after, like, you know, I have this buddy in Australia, Tiarni Vader. She's a fun astrologer, and she and I have a similar sort of way we unpack things. And in her Australian accent, she's like, you know, it's not the event, darling. It's the aftermath. The aftermath is now. The aftermath
Yes.
begins in 2020. So there's a couple of nodal transits of note that
Thank
I'd
you.
like to point out. Um, I will also say this as an astrologer. Again, I don't know how much this is going to land with people who know less about the technology, the techniques of astrology, or the. There's a thing called orb of influence. And what that means is if a 90-degree angle is an energy that's difficult, we have an agreement in astrology that, well, it doesn't have to just be exactly 90 to be considered a difficult square. You know, and a lot of astrologers will work with an orb of influence as big as 8 degrees. That would mean a square is a square at 98 degrees or 82 degrees or anywhere in between them. I don't work that way. It's like my body doesn't feel an energy that's that weak. And so I don't operate as an astrologer talking about, well, you're going to feel this unless I think we're going to feel it because the geometry is very tight. With nodal transits, I would not say that because they're just a different way. They're not two bodies interacting. It's a body interacting with a flow of energy. There's just a longer set of influence from my money as an astrologer. So as an example, one of the things that happens in the springtime of 2021 is that the planet Uranus, the Great Awakener, is going to conjunct the north node of the moon, the point that represents the future, the collective place we're all moving together toward. Uranus will wake us up no matter what, right? Uranus is like the guy who the day before, you know, the day after is the movie of what happened, but the day before Uranus says, I think I'm going to send a nuclear bomb to that place, right? Because he wants to wake us up. So Uranus on the North Node is a moment that the collective is being exploded into a higher level of awareness. So if you think about the last 2 years and some of the movements that rose up and the shift that's happening with people taking deeper responsibility for some of the challenges on the planet, Uranus on the North Node is going to make those efforts kind of explode potentially. And while the transit itself sort of hits like August 1st, because of proximity and closeness and what I'm calling a larger sort of orb of influence, I think we're going to start feeling this energy many months before, as early as May, and all the way toward the end of the year. So it peaks in summer. It's a large swath of 2022 is going to include lots of unstable, sudden, unexpected events that we all will have to respond to. But again, because it's a conjunction to the North Node, it's saying, go this way. It's not just about change and transformation, fall on your face and figure it out. It's like sudden awarenesses that help you align yourself with your true North Star. And those who don't will suffer the South Node, the past, being stuck in the past and greater suffering because of that. So this is the strongest energy of 2022, is this demand to join the collective movement, to go a little bit faster. But it's not just hi, join the ride and have fun. It's like we have choices. And every choice that aligns us with a higher route, an evolved perspective from our place of feeling more woke, will lead us in the direction of the North Node. And everything that is stuck in the past or doing things the old way or wishing for the old world or, patterns and habits that didn't get a chance to transform will keep you stuck in the past.
It sounds to me like I'm going to go. I don't know that this is accurate. It's not really, but the highway belt around Washington, D.C. And you're driving along, and here's one exit you can take to get into the city. And maybe there were some challenges getting to that exit. Okay, you didn't take that exit. Now let's give you some more challenges as you continue around the belt and another exit until you finally
get off the belt.
Yes.
I like that. That works for me to describe this energy, without a doubt.
So let's talk about some of the big news and nodes. Let's talk about move from Gemini Sagittarius to Taurus Scorpio.
Okay, so this is the salient piece of why this is terribly interesting to me. This sort of concomitance of 2 years of planetary transits ending and the nodes of the moon changing just as we leave this year and enter next year. So let's talk about what I mean by that. So remember I said this point of where the orbits cross each other, creating the nodes, it's a fixed point, but not fixed as in stationary, meaning it's there and it moves 30 degrees in 18 months. Mm-hmm. That means at the beginning of 2020, when everything was crazy, and starting, the north node of the moon, they move backwards, by the way. They don't move forwards in the zodiac. They appear to move backwards in the zodiac. The north node of the moon moved into Gemini. South node of the moon moved into Sagittarius, just as all this stuff was heating up on the planet. And so where the nodes are, this should be very obvious by now to your listening audience, is where eclipses happen. Remember, because where the nodes are generates the eclipses. Eclipses are transformative and prescient. They move us towards the future. Back in the day, they were thought of as omens about the future. We don't think of them as omens about the future because we live in a modern world. It used to be that the eclipse happened, then something bad would happen and be like, whoops, the eclipse caused that bad thing. Well, now we know that bad shit happens all the time and eclipses happen all the time, so we don't relate them. But in our consciousness and existence, eclipses move us forward. So where the nodes are pointing, tell a story of what archetype are we working with collectively. You're going to love this, Michael. Maybe you'll love this. Sagittarius, where the south node was, and Gemini, where the north node was, is all about beliefs, spiritual beliefs, religious beliefs, and the polarization that comes when one party believes that they have, that they're the only route to the divide. Sagittarius is the energy that invented exploration, spiritual seeking, learning, and growing. And so belief systems and religious beliefs fall under the Sagittarius domain. And in its opposite sign, Gemini, is where we are in split, divide, debate. So with the south node in the sign of what's true and the north node in the sign of we're going to debate this till we figure it out, was what was happening when we moved into pandemic land. Now, did we do that very well? I don't think we did. I think we got exposed to just how profoundly broken I think the United States of America is, how truth is a broken commodity, the problems of social media literally lifting up this polarized problem. Mm-hmm. So we've got this year and a half of our forward motion, north node in the sign of Gemini, helping us see clearly the impact of polarization and the problem therein. So what happens in January, right at the top of the year, the nodes shift. Now the north node is moving out of Gemini and into Taurus, and the south node leaves Sag and enters Scorpio. And so for the next year and a half, we are focusing as our collective North Star, a sign ruled by Venus, that's all about how much yummy delight there is in being here on the earth in form, in a body. Taurus said, this place is beautiful. Love is here. Sensation is here. Pleasure is here. And I'll repeat, love. Started with love, ended with love, because Taurus is all about loving this experience of being alive and in the body and on the earth. Scorpio, the past, the south node, is moving into Pluto's territory, where death awaits those who cannot move effectively towards love. So really, next year is about, what are you going to choose? Love or death?
And then anchor it
Yeah.
to carry you forward. And we're going to talk about 23, 24 in a second here. Maybe this the time, though, before we get swallowed up by death, so to speak. This is the time to talk about. And you said, I don't know, Michael, should we even go there? We've discussed it each time we've gotten together on a yearly basis. And I love these discussions with you, Michael. This is very important. We here in the States are in a grand experiment. The experiment, if it was an individual, is having a time of great return to deal with the skeletons of the past, shall we say. How are we doing, Michael? What's coming up? And do we even want to be here, or is this the time to get on a boat?
Well, listen, if you have the impulse to get on a boat, go. Get on the boat. Have at it. I wouldn't blame anybody. You're talking about the Pluto return,
yes,
of the chart of the United States. Yes, we have talked about it. I have talked about it. I have talked about it. I will continue to talk about it. And next year I'll be talking about it a lot. So yes, real quickly, a return is just the amplification of a single planet's consciousness because it has come back to where it was when it started. It being whatever the chart is reflecting. So if it's your life that the chart is reflecting, like your birth chart or my birth chart, the return everybody understands is your solar return, which is your birthday. Now, what happens on your birthday? You're in consideration of your identity, the who am I? And then you invite people over to celebrate that. You're going to come over to my house and you're going to tell me how wonderful I am and give me presents. And then we're going to blow out a candle.
I got hit by the truck on Jessica's birthday.
Oh, dear goddess. Well, and your everything is part of her consciousness of self. And so, yeah, there you have it. So a Saturn return, a lot of people have heard of. That's something that happens at around 28, 29, 30, again at around 58, 59, 60. And it's a moment when we are pressured to know everything we need to know to cross the threshold. The first one is, am I wise enough to be a full-on adult? And so that's the Saturn return. And so why I'm using this as an example is that Saturn, the teacher, brings up all of the lesson consciousness when he returns to where he started when you were born. I'm in my second Saturn return next year. And so the demand of my life next year is, do I know who I am? Am I ready to be an elder and serve? Am I ready to mentor the adults and hear from the ancestors? That's my definition of elder. Mm-hmm. Okay. Nobody has a Pluto return because nobody lives to 300 years. But the United States of America was born on July 4th, 1776, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I use 12 p.m. as a chart point, to create the birth chart of the United States of America, in which Pluto was at 27 degrees of Capricorn. Next year, Pluto will be at 27 degrees of Capricorn. That's a Pluto return for the United States of America. Pluto is the planet of power, authority, power and authority struggles, and everything that's hidden in the shadowy basement, everything we don't want to look at, everything we pretend isn't so, everything that we're frightened of, and everything that looks like I don't own my power, so I'm going to fight you because I'm really just feeling empowered, so I'm going to, That's Pluto. Pluto as the owner of the shadow, and the shadow being the place where we hide things that we wish weren't so,
Yep.
or pretend that certain things are true that aren't, to me is all about the thing in the United States that is its fundamental flaw, which was right there in the document, the Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal, in a world that was not at all true. In a land that was only being inhabited by decimating the First Nations people, and a world and a country that was being built on the backs of enslaved human beings, where women were barely above chattel. And if you know anything about your American history, the fight between, are we an agrarian country or a commerce country, started back in that period of time. And then the Civil War came, and then the civil rights, Jim Crow, and here we are in Civil War still. And so the Pluto return, which we've been feeling for years now, peaks next year. That means the reckoning that we are in the United States of really seeing what is true and so about this country. So while that's not a transit, that is going to amplify the challenges in the United States of America. There's, some peaks in February, July, and December around this. So we might see some peaks in those months in world events and current events. This is an American thing, or United States of American thing, but in the global sort of consciousness, we have a role at the center of that, and who are we going to continue to be as we move through? And there are the planetary sign changes that are coming are scary to me.
Tell me more about that.
Neptune is the planet of God consciousness, but that includes religiosity. Like, I don't equate God consciousness and religiosity because I'm someone who believes that all roads lead to God, not just my road, and that I therefore can kill you because you don't believe the way I do. So Neptune is in Pisces right now, the sign that he rules. And so there's one of the things that happened on the planet since 2011 when Neptune moved into Pisces is that the spiritual movements on the planet that are not religious and more about non-denominational universal ways of connecting to God consciousness have really risen up. At least that's been my experience. As someone who works in this field, I have watched it explode since 2011. Well, in 2024, Neptune is moving into the sign that invented war, Aries.
So what can we do in this halftime period to help the collective? Because I'm not a duck and cover kind of guy. I don't believe that it is written in the stars for us to obliterate ourselves, but instead that we can choose to bifurcate a different direction and ascend, to rise up.
Yeah. So my answer to that is always the same and simple. We are at war out there because there's too many people at war in here. Now, I don't know how to have those kinds of hard conversations out there. I'm not the right person to do it. First of all, I'm too easily triggered. I'm too, I've got too much of a barb consciousness, and I've cultivated a life where I'm not, I don't have to, be that. And I'm really good at helping people hold up the mirror and find the calm to the war inside of themselves, in the belief that when more people... Now, are there things that we can do that are have hard conversations, be activated, be out in the world? Yes, but I'm not that teacher. So I can't speak to that, though I think that's something to do. So from my first perspective is just make sure you're always doing your work on the inside and just noticing where are you still polarized inside. Do that work internally so that you can be someone who participates in the collective in a manner that is gently pushing things forward in a direction of love and peace.
one of the things I'm hearing then is I'm going to keep going back to halftime. We go to halftime, you hop in your car, and you drive to a place, we'll call it wound removal, wound removals are us. And we say during this more peaceful, I'll put that in quotes, period, I need to remove all wounds and old patterns so I can be more prescient or more aware of what's coming and be able to take action without old patterns keeping me stuck.
That's right. One of the things I would say to anybody would be like, we changed in 2020 and 21. We were transformed. And if you're sitting in a room where I'm sitting or where you're sitting, then you are somebody who's in that bubble of you use this time to self-investigate, or you wouldn't be sitting here. Yeah. Right? And so one of the messages for me would be trust the changes. Trust who you've become, and be more curious in the year to come of like, well, where will I align myself in relationship to the collective, and know that the hard work is behind me and I did enough to have, a new experience in the world as I move out next year.
Let's go to things that people always tend to take as duck and cover moments. And they're not really, but you've discussed that many times, but people still take them that way. And I agree on the contracts and stuff. It's not ideal to do it these times. But Mercury retrogrades and them being mostly in air signs this year.
Yeah. In fact, what's lovely is that all of them, there's actually a fourth Mercury retrograde that starts up at the very end of the year. But the shadow starts in late December. We're not talking about that. The three major Mercury retrogrades that happen in like mid-January, mid-May, and early like mid-September are all air signs back to earth signs. This is now in 2021, they were all in air signs only. This next year, they go from air to earth. So that means that while we were in 2021 and we went through Mercury retrogrades, the value of which is they help us rewire how we think, how we process our communication. They're so important. I wish people were a little bit more graceful and accepting of the bumping into the furniture that happens. Listen, I hate them. They're cranky as hell for me. I do not enjoy them, but I value them. Anyway, lecture aside. When you have a year where they're all in air signs, then there's a deep impact on how we think. Like I love to anthropomorphize. Mercury last year, 2021, said, boy, these people need help with how they think. I'm going to go retrograde in every single air sign. So here's what he's saying in 2021. It's like, not bad. Let's ground these changes into more sort of embodied consciousness. So in this early retrograde in January in Aquarius, it's going to all be about innovative thinking, out of the box, problems with the internet, watch your computers. But as Mercury then comes into Capricorn in that retrograde and then goes back into Aquarius, then it's like all of that out of the box innovative thinking can then actually be grounded into, well, what are your goals and ambitions? Capricorn energy. Then in the spring, it's Gemini to Taurus. So then it's like about flirty ideas, chatty chat. How do I sort of process all of the thoughts I'm having? Gemini, back into Taurus says, and what's most important to your heart? Right. And then in the summer, in September, it's Libra to Virgo, where we're involved in relationship consciousness and thinking about the reflection, Libra. So then it's like I'm in my thoughts about how I relate in a Libra consciousness, but I'm going to ground that into my body. Virgo rules the body and integration. Right. So that's the value of these three Mercury retrogrades that happen in air, but move back into Earth. Just at sort of the second half of each of them. I love that. It allows us, I think, next year to have shifts and changes with how we think, communicate, and interact, but also ground them and embody them more deeply.
Thank you. Few last things, then we'll get you rolling for 2022. Jupiter and his relationship to
Yeah.
Pisces.
Yeah, this is actually yummy. One of the nicest threads of 2022 is that Jupiter is coming to kind of like coming home to a ruling sign. Back before we discovered the outer planets, most signs were ruled by two planets. In fact, Neptune, who was discovered in like 1846 or something like that, was named for the god of the oceans and connected to the spiritual consciousness that astrologers ultimately decided that planet ought to represent. And so astrologers agreed that Pisces should be ruled by Neptune. And Pisces does, in fact, govern the notion that we're all one, that we're all connected as one. Therefore, that's the mansion where forgiveness, compassion, care for the underdog and others is ripe in the Pisces mansion. And back before 1846, this was a sign that Jupiter ruled. So he ruled Sagittarius and Pisces. So he's coming into territory where he's most comfortable, and Jupiter is the planet through which we manifest. Jupiter brings joy, expansion, travel, education, and every desire that we might have inside of us for something that we wish to have in form, that is what we would call manifestation desires. You need you need Jupiter to be in good working order to help you manifest your heart's desire. So when he moves into Pisces, which happens right at the end of this year, right before the new year starts, like December 29th, I think. So we start the year off with our Jupiter's not out there. Jupiter's in each of you as the part of you that believes in everything that's possible. And in Pisces, that belief is even stronger, more unshakable, and less likely to be riddled by doubt of, I can't make that happen, because Jupiter in Pisces feels expansive as all get out. One of the challenges with this is that he ain't going to retrograde here and hang out in Pisces. He's going to zip through. So by the time we get to May, I think it's the second week in May, he moves into Aries, where he will spend a little bit more time by going retrograde. So the first half of the year, we have the planet of manifestation so rich and ripe and at home in a yummy mansion where we're going to feel more expansive and capable of everything. And Jupiter in Aries is a yummy place for Jupiter to be, not at all debilitated. And because Aries is a cardinal sign, a startup sign, an energy that puts motion into, action into motion, into action, action into start things up the second half of the year with Jupiter in Aries.
So if you're listening to this, you always, I'm sure, like me, bring these things back to home. And I'm sure you do, Michael, as well. You bring things back to home. What I'm hearing personally is we have one girl who I strongly believe is going to make it, baby Hannah, in the mama's belly. And so right now I can anchor that in as we come to the end of the year.
I would even say the loss of the other twin was an inevitable necessity to reflect the square that's hitting today. And Hannah coming out next year is a reflection of the nodal transits of next year.
Yeah. And Miracle is her name, and we hope Miracle comes back in physical form, and I do communicate with her on a daily basis in spirit form. She could not have hung around with Hannah making it. Neither would have made it. And so she helped bring Hannah here.
Yeah. And that is the story that often happens when there are two. This is not an uncommon story, and you must know that now because you're in this exploration. You're probably told by your doctors this is common.
Yeah. So, on the other hand, she's supposed to be born around that mid-May that you're talking about. Hannah is supposed to be born right around that mid-May.
Can't make this stuff up.
So on that note, anything else or any other specific dates we should be aware of for 2022?
I think the only thing I'll just point out is that the eclipse seasons are sort of the roughest time of any year, just because of amplified energy. So this is what I'm saying right now is not. Oh, watch out for eclipses. It's like if you're asking me for one last sort of
Yeah.
thing. Understand that late April through May and late October through most of November are the two eclipse seasons. And one of the things that is interesting about that is that will make May a more intense month than probably any other month, because of the direct hit of Uranus on the North Node is also happening at eclipse time. So I would say that it's not only an amplified time for all of us personally, it might also be a fairly amplified time on the planet as a whole. And we might see some big things rise up in the collective that are Uranian in nature, meaning unexpected and destabilizing.
Thank you. So I need to share with everybody where they can go to find the astral overview for the 2022, that webinar. And do you have a theme? Mine is gentle and family. Do you have a theme for 2022?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've spoken a little bit in here. It's like it's the aftermath, darling, and turn towards love or get grabbed by death.
I cannot woohoo to that. I agree with that.
Well, you know what? I can.
All right.
So I'll hold the woohoo until you can join that.
Thank you. All right. Where can people go to find your astral overview for 2022 webinar?
MichaelLennox.com is my website, and there's a banner up at the top of the website about getting a hold of the recording for the webinar. And while you're there, sign up for my newsletter so that you're on my mailing list.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Give me the URL one more time for people.
MichaelLennox.com, MichaelLennox.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Any last words of wisdom or anything you want to share? This has been phenomenal, even if it's a little bit of a, well, it's not fasten the seatbelt the way it was last year. It's breathe deep and get to work, because you're going to have to get a really big seatbelt.
My last thing is just have at it, everybody.
Woohoo! So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, turn toward the love in 2022 so that you're not clobbered by the death, and above and beyond. Oh God, I can't even do that today. I can't get through it. Above and beyond all else. Oh, I love you, Miracle. Shine bright. Woohoo! I love you guys. I don't know there are times where it doesn't feel like words can do justice to what's going on in your life, and I get it. I really get it. And so I don't know how to end this one except to say I'd replay this over and over again, get an idea for the year ahead, do the work, dive into your heart, certainly dive into love, work with everyone around you. I'm always going to mention at this point all the automatic writing experience. Dive into love and dive into spirit. Automaticwriting.com. Get your video-based program, your live classes. Go to our School of Mystics. Learn how you can live on both sides of the veil at once. That's at InspireNationUniversity.com. But really, use this time for all you've got. We have no choice but to do that. Really, I don't believe any of us have a choice but to do this. And I'm saying this out of an incredibly positive place. You have such an opportunity here. So on that note, use it. Subscribe to the channel. Click the bell icon. Be notified of upcoming shows. Come join us for those events Monday night, where I'm certainly sharing from the heart. Come join us for our School of Mystics, where I'm giving you the lessons I'm learning on this journey. Oh my God, the lessons that I've got a class tonight. I can't even tell you. I know what the theme is. We're going to see what I channel. We're going to see what comes through. But it's so helpful for people. And on that last couple notes, there's a join button down below to join the Mystic Circle. That's where we do behind the scenes videos and share with you what we're going through on a deep heart, soul level, give you inspiration on a near daily, not always daily basis, particularly with what's going on now, but on a near daily basis to help you, give you the fuel that you need, because you're going through the same stuff that we are. On that note, you can check out the next amazing video by clicking here. Be sure to subscribe, share with everybody you know. Love you guys so, so much. Don't forget, we have a podcast, iTunes, Spotify, the works. And above and beyond all else, shine bright. Love you guys so, so much. Woohoo!